The 2024 presidential election sent shockwaves through the American political landscape, defying conventional wisdom and revealing unexpected shifts in voter behavior. One of the most striking trends was the surge in support for Donald Trump among immigrant communities, a demographic often assumed to be solidly aligned with the Democratic Party. This unexpected turn of events has left many political analysts scratching their heads, prompting a closer examination of the factors that propelled this demographic shift. The reasons behind this phenomenon are complex and multifaceted, defying simplistic explanations. While some may attribute it solely to economic anxiety or concerns about immigration, the reality is far more nuanced. To understand this trend, we must delve into the lived experiences of immigrant voters, exploring the hopes, fears, and aspirations that shaped their choices at the ballot box. This essay seeks to shed light on the motivations of immigrants who cast their lot with Donald Trump in 2024. By examining the interplay of economic concerns, immigration policies, and social values, we can gain a deeper understanding of this significant electoral development and its potential implications for the future of American politics. Through the stories of individual voters, we will navigate the complexities of this issue, moving beyond simplistic narratives to grasp the multifaceted realities that shaped this surprising outcome. The increase in support for Trump among Latino voters was particularly significant and played a pivotal role in his electoral victory. National exit polls indicated a 14 percentage point increase in Latino support for Trump compared to the 2020 election, a staggering shift that surprised many political observers. This surge in Latino support was not uniform across the country, but was particularly pronounced in key battleground states, where it proved decisive in swinging the election in Trump's favor. This shift in Latino voting patterns reflects a growing disillusionment with the Democratic Party among some segments of this demographic. While Democrats have traditionally relied on strong Latino support, the 2024 election revealed a fraying of this alliance, with a growing number of Latino voters finding resonance with Trump's populist message and his stance on certain social and economic issues. The reasons behind this shift are complex and cannot be attributed to any single factor. Economic concerns, anxieties about cultural change, and perceptions of the Democratic Party as out of touch with the concerns of working-class Latinos all contributed to this electoral realignment. Understanding the motivations of these voters is crucial for both parties as they chart their course for future elections. For many immigrant voters, economic concerns were paramount in their decision-making process. The 2024 election took place against a backdrop of rising inflation, soaring housing costs, and stagnant wages, creating a climate of economic uncertainty that cut across demographic lines. Immigrant communities, often concentrated in lower-wage jobs and disproportionately impacted by economic downturns, felt the sting of these economic anxieties acutely. Trump's campaign rhetoric, with its focus on economic nationalism and promises to bring back manufacturing jobs, resonated with some immigrant voters who felt left behind by globalization and yearned for a return to a more prosperous past. These voters, many of whom held blue-collar jobs in industries that had experienced significant decline, saw Trump as a champion for their economic interests, a leader who would prioritize American workers and restore their economic security. The economic anxieties of immigrant voters were not limited to concerns about job security and wages. Many also expressed apprehension about the rising cost of living, particularly housing costs, which had become increasingly unaffordable in many parts of the country. Trump's promises to reduce regulations and unleash economic growth appealed to these voters who hoped that his policies would lead to greater prosperity and a more affordable cost of living. Immigration policy, always a contentious issue in American politics, took on added salience in the 2024 election. Trump's hardline stance on immigration, which had been a defining feature of his presidency, continued to resonate with some immigrant voters, particularly those who had immigrated legally and felt that their sacrifices and contributions were being overshadowed by undocumented immigrants. These voters often expressed frustration with what they perceived as lax enforcement of immigration laws, arguing that it undermined the rule of law and created an unlevel playing field. They supported Trump's focus on border security and his efforts to crack down on illegal immigration, believing that these measures were necessary to protect American jobs and preserve national sovereignty. However, it's essential to recognize that the immigrant community is not monolithic in its views on immigration. Many immigrants, including those who had immigrated legally, expressed empathy for undocumented immigrants and supported a pathway to citizenship. They argued that undocumented immigrants made significant contributions to the American economy and society and deserved a chance to earn legal status. These voters often felt torn between their support for Trump's economic policies and their disagreement with his immigration policies, highlighting the complex calculus that many immigrants faced at the ballot box. Section 5. The power of values, family, faith, and tradition. Beyond economic anxieties and immigration policy, social and cultural values also played a significant role in shaping the voting preferences of some immigrant communities. Trump's emphasis on traditional values, particularly his stance on issues such as abortion and religious freedom, resonated with some immigrant voters who held conservative views on these matters. These voters, often hailing from countries with strong religious traditions and conservative social norms, expressed concern about what they perceived as a growing secularism and moral relativism in American society. They were drawn to Trump's unwavering stance on these issues, viewing him as a defender of their values and a bulwark against what they saw as a tide of cultural change threatening their way of life. The importance of family values also featured prominently in the decision-making process of many immigrant voters. Trump's emphasis on law and order, his tough-on-crime rhetoric, and his promises to restore a sense of safety and security to American communities appealed to voters who worried about crime rates and the well-being of their families. These voters saw Trump as a leader who would prioritize their safety and protect their communities from what they perceived as growing threats to their way of life. Section 6. Battleground states where Latino votes reshaped the map. The surge in Latino support for Trump was particularly significant in key battleground states, where it played a decisive role in shaping the electoral outcome. In Pennsylvania, for instance, Trump's improved performance among Latino voters in the state's Latino belt proved crucial in delivering him a narrow victory. Trump's message of economic populism, combined with his appeal to traditional values, resonated with a significant number of Latino voters in the state, many of whom had voted for Democrats in previous elections. Similarly, in Texas, long considered a reliably Republican state, the shift in Latino voting patterns towards Trump was notable, particularly in traditionally Democratic areas along the border. Trump's hardline stance on immigration, coupled with his focus on border security, appealed to some Latino voters in these communities who expressed concerns about the impact of illegal immigration on their communities. The geographic concentration of Latino voters in key battleground states underscores the growing importance of this demographic in American politics. As the Latino population continues to grow, both parties are recognizing the need to engage with this increasingly influential voting bloc and address its concerns. Section 7. The fog of misinformation, navigating a sea of uncertainty. The 2024 election was marked by a proliferation of misinformation and disinformation, much of it targeting immigrant communities. False or misleading information about voter fraud, immigration policies, and the candidates themselves circulated widely on social media and through messaging apps, creating a climate of confusion and distrust. This misinformation often preyed on the anxieties and vulnerabilities of immigrant communities, exploiting their fears about deportation, economic insecurity, and social isolation. For instance, false claims about mass deportations or changes to immigration policies sowed fear and uncertainty among some immigrant communities, potentially influencing their voting decisions. The spread of misinformation poses a significant threat to the integrity of democratic processes, as it undermines informed decision-making and erodes trust in institutions. Addressing this challenge requires a multi-pronged approach, including media literacy initiatives, fact-checking efforts, and greater accountability for social media companies in curbing the spread of harmful content. Section 8. A hopeful bargain. Seeking a path to belonging. For many immigrants who voted for Trump, their decision was driven by a deep desire for belonging, a yearning to be fully integrated into American society and to secure a better future for themselves and their families. They saw in Trump a leader who acknowledged their concerns, who spoke directly to their anxieties, and who promised to restore a sense of order and stability to a country they increasingly felt adrift. Their votes were not necessarily an endorsement of all of Trump's policies or rhetoric, but rather a reflection of their own hopes and aspirations, their belief that he represented the best chance for achieving their version of the American dream. They yearned for a leader who would fight for their economic interests, who would protect their communities from what they perceived as threats, and who would uphold the values they held dear. Their stories highlight the complex and often contradictory impulses that shape the political identities of immigrant communities. They remind us that immigrants are not a monolithic bloc, but rather individuals with diverse backgrounds, experiences, and aspirations, each navigating the complexities of American society in their own way. Section 9. The Future of the Latino Vote, a Force to be Reckoned with. The 2024 election underscored the growing importance of the Latino vote in American politics, a trend that is only likely to accelerate in the years to come. As the Latino population continues to grow, so too will its political influence, forcing both parties to grapple with the complexities of this diverse and dynamic electorate. The future of the Latino vote remains uncertain, with both parties vying for its allegiance. The Democratic Party, long accustomed to strong Latino support, will need to reassess its strategies and messaging to address the concerns of this evolving electorate. The Republican Party, meanwhile, faces the challenge of consolidating its gains among Latino voters, many of whom remain skeptical of the party's commitment to their interests. The 2024 election served as a wake-up call for both parties, a stark reminder that the Latino vote can no longer be taken for granted. The battle for the hearts and minds of Latino voters is likely to intensify in the years to come, shaping the political landscape and influencing the direction of the nation.